Well, I guess this is us, guys, and day one, Gator football. Here we are, Brendan Martin, along with Lauren Meadows. I'm Buddy Martin, and it happened today in Gainesville. Brendan, they're underway. I was thinking today that how many times have we done this? We've done this so many times over the years. This is like my 155th time, and yours.
I mean, is it football season yet or what?
To me, it is. Lauren, is it? I think Lauren Meadows. You were there. What did it feel like?
Yeah, football season is upon us. I mean, like somebody noted, literally it's about 30 days away till Utah for the Gators. So yeah, I mean it's here. It's upon us. NFL training camps have started. College training camps will start today. A couple teams I think have already started because they have week zero games, and so yeah, it's here. It's hot and it's time to roll.
Brendan, I can feel it. Can't you? Does it feel that
I,
way?
it's like Christmas.
Yeah.
It's a football. It's a football Christmas,
Yeah.
is what it
Yeah.
is. I mean, it's probably one of my favorite days of the year. If you're a diehard, and you know that July is always so difficult. It's like December 1st, I say, before Christmas starts, and you have to wait that whole month. And then and now we're here. I mean, now we got something really to talk about. Plus, listening to Billy's press conference today, talking about bringing back those pre-COVID traditions of having open practice for a week, for the fan base, and hopefully that
Wait, what
continues.
do you say again?
He said he's going to bring back some of these old traditions for the fan base, which would be open practice. I know gives us something to talk about, but more importantly, it
Uh,
gives us a little bit of insight of what's to come for because been talking recruiting so much, Lauren. 2024 class. Not that we overlooked this season, but I'm really interested to see what kind of team takes the field. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think of all the talk, I mean, recruiting gives us something to talk about when there's really no head stumping. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody's interested to see, what's going to come of these different storylines, with what's going to happen at the quarterback position, what's the defense going to look like, under Austin Armstrong. And, a myriad of other, the offensive line has been retooled, and a lot of people think that could actually once again be the strength of the offensive side of the ball. So yeah, I mean, now you get those questions answered. And for a short time, recruiting kind of goes to the back burner. Always, Billy Napier and his staff has always said that recruiting is 24/7, 365. But at the same time, at the root of the results is what happens on the field. So yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time. And like you said, with opening up practice for the public next weekend, should be something that Florida fans have been looking for since before COVID. And I think that could go a long way with exposing what Billy Napier has in store for his football program and what they may look like going into 2023.
Let me
I
go
know
back
we're
to.
going to
Let
get
me,
to buddy. I know we're going to get to the Billy Napier bites, but what? Just to add on to what Lauren was saying. Billy did say in his press conference that there's significant NIL opportunities with having open practice. What do you think he was sort of meaning by that, Lauren?
Well, I think the Florida Victorious, the NIL group that's kind of been involved, kind of retooled from what was initially started under that agreement, and they're going to offer the opportunity for, I think, Florida Victorious members to have some interaction with the team, kind of an abbreviated fan fest or fan interaction where you'll be able to, get your autographs and different memorabilia signed. I'm sure that people kind of have hats and balls and gloves and different things they would like to get signed by their favorite players. So I think that's what he meant by that. And by exposing the players to that with the Florida Victorious umbrella around it, that will maybe encourage people to get involved and continue to contribute to Florida Victorious, and then in turn that leads to obviously NIL opportunities.
all right. So here's the deal.
Oh, by the way, I want to say,
Let me just
buddy.
finish it. Let me finish this up. I want to say is a different kind of language coming out of there. I'm going to play it by ear in just a second since Brendan makes his comment. Billy said some things that you didn't hear at your typical press conference. Certainly not the ones I've attended over the last 500 years. And the stats and numbers and stuff, if you're like new to this, it's like, okay, what does all this mean? What does all this mean? And it is the way they coach today. He's got numbers for everything. He mentioned 21 days, by the way. They got a fall practice. So whenever we play this, pay attention, folks, because these are things that you might not hear normally in a press conference. I want to get your take on it. Brenda, what do you want to say?
I just want to say that we are going live exclusively to YouTube today, which is our new home for the Buddy Martin Show. Those who are, a lot of people will watch this later on. Make sure you hit the like and make sure you comment in the chat. If you're watching live, go to the chat and make a comment for us. And also hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to Buddy Martin Show right now. It's free. We got lots and lots of plans here on YouTube for the future. So there's a little bell at the bottom that says subscribe, or a little button at the bottom that says subscribe. Just hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. And you'll get all of our updates, which will have much more content here this year for the football season. You don't want to miss it. So go ahead and like the show. Go ahead and comment in the chat room, and that always helps us, helps the algorithm, and always subscribe, as we're endeavoring to get to 1,000 subscribers, and we hit the 500 mark over the weekend. So we're excited about that.
It's fun when I have the controls, all the noise. Okay, listen up closely, guys. I want you to comment on this, and you folks out there listening on YouTube can comment also later on our Facebook link. We'll be able to play this. But here's what Billy said today. I thought this was pretty interesting, these bites. And yeah, it's a little coach speak, but what kind of numbers are we talking about here? Not the kind I'm used to.
Well, I'm really proud of the progress that our team made this summer in Phase 5. The development staff, I thought in particular, really improved in year 2. All the metrics that we have from a testing perspective, I think we took a step forward. Strength, speed, explosiveness, all the DEXA information was really good. And certainly that group works together, right? They execute as a team. The strength and conditioning, sports science, the nutrition, the training room, really good leadership and insight from Mark Hockey and his staff. And then certainly the addition of Tyler Miles and Kelsey continues to get better. Tony Hill and Paul Silvestri, that group of people has to work extensively together, oftentimes when the coaches are out of town for vacation. So their leadership, their relationships with the players, and their plan, right? I think we took a huge step forward there. So, some really interesting numbers here, for you guys. I think I get a kick out of some of this, but you had 53 players that set records for max velocity this summer, which I think was really positive. TJ Searcy gained 12 pounds of muscle since January. Jalen Kimbers gained 8 pounds since April of muscle. Jack Pyburn, 10 pounds of muscle mass since January. His body fat percentage went down 6%. So really, Jack did a terrific job. Jason Marshall, 7 pounds of lean muscle. A couple guys, Princely had a fantastic summer. He maxed in all 3 lifts, all 3 core lifts, bench, squat, clean. He improved his max velocity, gained 10 pounds of lean muscle, and he lost 7 pounds of fat mass, right? So a really good summer there. I do think Tony Livingston, this guy's gained 28 pounds of muscle since January. So that's 2 DEXAs worth of information. Bryce Lovett gained 10 pounds of muscle and lost 10 pounds of fat. So there's others. Andy Jean, 9 pounds of lean mass. Graham Mertz gained 4 pounds of lean muscle. Ricky Pearsall, 4 pounds of lean muscle, actually decreased his body fat slightly. So we've got a lot of guys that are using the resources.
Okay, Loren, what did we just hear?
Well, I think what you heard is what the next level of training has become at the college football level. I mean, it is a full time operation with a lot of moving parts, be it nutrition, sports, and performance. Mark Hockey kind of preceded Billy Napier and stated that, the way of thinking where, like, he mentioned when he started playing football at the college level, you had to run a mile when you came into camp. When I was at Ohio Northern, we had to run an 800, and then people were doing the 110 test and things like that. All that stuff is kind of going out the window. A lot of more emphasis on quick twitch, quick bursts, things like that, and just the nutrition, the level of supplements, watching and observing body fat, lean muscle mass. All those things
I'm,
speak to
I'm
not just the
questioning whether or not that's necessary to say all that. And look, I get it's important. One of the
right.
guys that does an SEC podcast on Feinbaum made a comment during media days, said, I'm so tired. I've been working all week. I'm going to go home and listen to Billy Napier and go to sleep. That was what he said. Now, I don't get that because
well,
we have more interest, but just to make the point,
well,
I mean, what numbers, Brendan, did you hear in there? Like I heard 21 days, 53 max velocity, and I don't know what else I heard, Brendan. What did you hear?
I guess what I heard is that there's not a whole lot of things to talk about from last season, and there's a lot of question on personnel. There's a lot of question on if these guys improved over the summer. And I think that's sort of getting ahead of a lot of those questions. It's like, well, what are you doing or what is your coaching staff doing in the offseason to get better? Because certainly we couldn't do that much in the transfer portal. From Joe fan base, you lost a lot of guys, who left. I don't know what the total number was, but I think it's a lot like, well, the guys that are left are getting better, and there's, this is how they're getting
Yeah.
better, and this is why, and in a lot of sense, I know Urban Meyer didn't really talk that kind of stuff, but I know that, strength and conditioning was something that he spoke about all the time as being really important. And I think that, what we're hearing from Billy is that this has been the emphasis in the off season.
Yeah.
And also, oh, by the way, if you're going to come play here, we've got an awesome new facility and we've got great
Yeah.
coaches that are going to
Yeah.
get you better,
Yeah.
stronger to go play in the NFL.
I heard
I
all
think
that.
everything that Billy
well,
does is,
well,
is for recruiting or the
All
transfer
right. Let
portal.
me give it back to Lauren
well,
because
another
I
thing.
interrupted Lauren. You go ahead, Lauren. I didn't mean to be rude.
Well, no, what I was going to speak to is, and I think it's the same thing, is, it's the first day of camp to his defense, but also, it does speak to the fact that, Billy Napier and his staff are going to make an effort to limit injuries and make sure that they have the people in place, because we do know the roster is somewhat limited. So there are some injuries that could truly cripple this football team. And like Brendan said, I mean, it just speaks to the overall commitment of what the program is going to be about. And the thing is, and I'm speaking from a fan perspective, so to speak, not myself necessarily as a fan, but all the fans, is the fact that, we applaud Billy Napier for these kind of things, the meticulousness, the attention to detail, and things like that. And I think he showed you that. And in one hand, as a fan, you can't say, well, I love his meticulous nature and very detailed and things like that. And then when he presents you the details, like you said, you can't kind of shy away from that.
I hear you. Yeah, you're right. But let me just show you the difference. When you talk about things like leadership, that gets my attention. Okay. Now here's the difference in the bite. This I found really interesting because this is what this team is about. Ready? This is Billy again on accountability and leadership.
Renewed accountability with this group of players. I think they would tell you that. I think we saw really good leadership. We really, from a team perspective, I think leadership, we're asking them 4 questions coming out of this summer, right? Amongst the team, who do you view as a great example and a guy that really did a good job throughout the summer in your position group? Within your class, I think we're looking for lots of cross-section in terms of giving the player a voice. We have a lot of players in different places relative to how long they've been here. And then one of the things we did this summer, as you guys know, is we have accountability teams. We have 2 leaders for each team. And then we asked the players, hey, which person on your team that wasn't a leader did the best job, right? So I think that's one of the things I've been most pleased with is we have a number of leaders emerging that maybe weren't in that place when we started in January, if that makes sense. So, I think there's a different level of connection with this group. The team chemistry, the morale, the energy in the building is really fun to be a part of. So we're turning the page. Today's report day. This is phase 6 training camp. It's going to be 21 days this year. So essentially we'll finish up 3 weeks from today. And, as a competitor, and I would say as competitors that make up our team, this is the time of the year that you really look forward to as we kind of prepare for the challenges that are ahead of us. It's a critical time.
Okay, we can understand that language a little better there, I think. I think that the essence, I understand all the particulars, how the sausage is made, how, and those are things that football geeks love. That's fine, but I'm interested in leadership, accountability, the things, and later on in this soundbite, he talks about trust. And what I liked about it, and you'll hear it in Mark Long's question, he asks about your expectations. How do you manage expectations? And I thought Billy had a really good answer because the expectations are not about what's out there, it's what the team is expecting. And then you build that circle of trust. He says you're accountable to those guys in there, nobody else, and you've got to assess your expectations. And you say to each other, what do you think you got here? Can I count on you being there? That to me is what I call accountability, Loren, right there.
Well, absolutely. It's the definition of accountability. And, I think that obviously the Gators under Billy Napier have kind of insulated themselves, sometimes I think to their detriment, but at the same time, it ultimately can produce results on the field. And I think that's the thing that no matter what, and, we could talk about the training, what you just said, the leadership, the accountability, who's doing what in your class, but ultimately it has to produce results on the field. And I think that's where, like I said, as much as we want to laud these things.
Yeah, that's where it is.
Yeah, the ultimate result, the ultimate product is produced between the white lines. And I think, ultimately that's where we kind of have to get to. So when you say, it's very tough to ask a coach, well, who's looking good? Well, he could tell you who was looking good in the spring, but you have to almost present
coaching. They're coaching media when they talk.
Right.
They're trying to tell people, get the message back to the left tackle. He's got to lose some weight. That's what they do. And Brendan, back to your point, real fast. Getting to your point, you're exactly right. Not too much about last year. Who wants to go back on last year? We want to go forward. Let's go to next year. They're playing it forward, and that's good. But you know what? It took him a long time to get around to Graham Mertz, and then he only mentioned him and his body mass. So that is the big question. That is the 800-pound gorilla, Brendan.
Well, yeah, and I think what we're seeing now is that this is Billy Napier year 2. This is, last year you're kind of just showing up and you're just hoping for the best. I saw a couple of sound bites floating around on the internet the other day and saying SEC coaches saying Billy and Napier inherited one of the worst talented teams, in 20-year history of Florida football. I think there's some truth to that, but I think now, and I guess I've just been hearing a lot of Urban Meyer talk and whatnot lately about, when he played at different teams, when he played at different, coach at different teams. And even Spurrier talking about, it doesn't matter where you are, what your team are, what you're doing. You got to make these guys believe in themselves and believe in each other. And I think what we're seeing is the basis of the beginning of his coaching for this year, which is saying, listen, you got to hold each other accountable. It's not just what your squad is, what your unit is. It's about, hey, DB's caring about what the offensive tackle's doing. Everyone's caring about everyone's position. And he said, I don't know what bites you have, but I know that one of the things they're doing this year is that they picked random roommates for training camp, that they're putting people who don't know each other together. And Billy says one thing to know somebody's first name. It's one thing to know somebody's first name and last name. It's another thing to know somebody's first name, last name, where they're from, what their family's about, and what they like for dinner. They're putting their cell phones away when they go down to training table. And a lot of his jargon, if you notice, is very professional NFL. Hey, this is check-in day. This is day one of training camp. This is a lot of these, his verbiage. I know he's very particular, but he's keeping it more of like this in professional environment. But at the same time, he's also installing the building blocks for this year and this year's team to say, listen, we got to care about each other, and if we believe we can go do anything, then literally you can be any team at any time and you can go win a national championship, because it's all about believing in one another and the process. And I think that's what we're hearing.
That's easy to say.
Well, I'm not saying it's. I'm not saying it's.
I'm not saying you're not saying. I'm saying it's easy for us to say I believe in it, but you got to show it. You got to prove it. You got to do it, and that's what we're waiting to see now. On the roommate thing, I don't mean to be throwing darts at the past ghost of University of Florida, but remember when they roomed Tebow and Aaron Hernandez together?
Yeah, well,
talk about an odd couple. There's one right there. Hey, here's the thing. Let's get to
the but it worked.
Results on the field, though.
Yeah, sure did work, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, if you're building character and trust, not so much. Yeah. Okay. So here's what I want to get to. I want to get to the questions, and folks, again, if you're watching us on YouTube, if you're not, please tell your friends about us. Come and subscribe. We're going to be doing more of this over here. The regular show will be still heard on Facebook for a while, but this is something new, these pop-up shows, and thanks to Loren for putting in a long day and going up and grabbing. We're going to talk about, you talked to some interesting people today, too. We didn't get all those bites from you, Loren. I know we'll get you to tell us about it. Let's go hear the first question. This is Edgar Thompson at the first question. Orlando Sentinel of Billy.
Where are you guys depth-wise, personnel-wise, a year later?
I think we're in a little bit better place. I do think there's parts of our team where we're going to have young players playing, but I think they're talented. I think there's areas of our team where injuries are important, but I also think we've added some experience. I think we've added some awareness, some maturity. We've added some veteran players I think can make our team better. So, in the two deep, I think when we get done with this thing, there's a ton of competition going into this camp. But I do anticipate as we approach that first game, we're going to have young players that are going to be out there. So the positive thing about that is we've had those players since January. And I think with the amount of work that we do, our year-round plan to get those guys ready, I think will give us a better opportunity to work with some of those young players. It's becoming more prevalent, right, when you start talking about roster attrition, freshmen impacting your team, portal players impacting your team. So we said it at Media Day, 93% of the team's been here since the first day.
There you go, guys. Now, Loren, you talked to Ricky Pearsall. We'll get that in a minute, but he said young players. When you say young players and thinking about true freshmen, who among them can contribute? First thing I think of, Brendan and Loren, is wide receivers. Pearsall's got good players. They got 2 or 3 good players there, I think. But the talent level of the freshmen is remarkable. You're hearing great things out of Andy Jean. You heard him mention about his body mass a while ago. Eugene Williams, Wilson, I have not seen that guy, but he's a flyer apparently. I hear about him. And then Aiden Mizell. Loren, are those the names you think of when you talk about young players?
Yeah, definitely. At the receiver position, those 3 names, Aiden Mizell, Eugene Wilson II, and Andy Jean, who I actually had the pleasure of talking to last year up at Florida State, really polished, young men, great route runners. Andy Jean's more of a route runner. Eugene Wilson is kind of Percy Harvin light right now, just kind of in that mode a little bit. And then Aiden Mizell is a flyer. He can really move. And then another name that was interesting was Rob Sale, has really been impressed with Najee Harris out of IMG Academy. Yeah. And said that, he operates like a second or third year player in the program. And I think that's kind of, I think when he was, kind of talking about, young players playing, all three of those, really four names that could really stand out and be young players that could be called upon to play meaningful minutes. So, like I said, with the landscape, the way that it is, and you guys can kind of speak to this. It almost seems like in some ways you're almost forced to play young guys. It used to be you could wait for them to get ready and things like that. You can't wait anymore
But they're a
because
lot more ready today, Lauren. They come ready now.
well,
it's a different deal.
they're not only are they ready, but they can get up and go on you too.
Right.
And then next year they're playing for someone else's program.
True,
so.
true.
I think the different landscape has put a lot of those things in play, and the state of the Florida roster right now. You're definitely going to see not just those names, but probably a couple others that could play some meaningful minutes.
And Brendan, one of the things about it, the glue, and Lauren, you can speak to this, is how this team gets along, how they hang together. Now, I've seen some reports, Shannon Snell on his grill in the Ville this weekend, which is the big barbecue. And he said out of the 6 years he's been doing this, this was the best one. So the glue that keeps him from going someplace else, accountability to each other, and having social ability, because let's face it, you can be awfully lonely as a young freshman. That would, I think, Brendan, don't you think that'll play a part in the decision of some of these guys? Maybe I'll hang around here a while.
Well, certainly. I think certainly the environment when you're, that age, you want to go to college and have a college experience, right? I mean, that's important. But at the same time, as Billy and any coach knows, or any team knows, you're always on blast with everyone with the cell phone and what's going on. And I think that it's really important that you have the ability to have a life, but at the same time, you also have the ability to play when you're young, and that he's sending a message. Look, you come to Florida, whether you're recruited, you come through the portal, whatever it may be. You're gonna you prove yourself, but you're gonna play. We're gonna get you minutes because he knows that they can walk, like Lauren said, at any moment. They could make a different decision, whether it's this 2024 class could decommit or do whatever they want. That these guys that it's nice to say we've got somebody or they're coming or whatever, but that decision can change in a whim. And it's important to know that you're going to play if you come to Florida, if we recruit you, and if you're a 5-star or a 4-star, or if you're some kind of badass coming from some other team, that you're going to get in and have the opportunity to prove yourself to go to the next level. And that is really important, because what the portal and what with the changes in recruiting, NIL, what that's really saying now, especially with money involved and everything else, it's like a junior NFL anymore in the SEC. And the SEC is like, more than just a proving ground anymore. It's like a feeder to the NFL programs, because you see all these guys that will come out of the SEC and will go get big contracts. You got look at Anthony Richardson, who had a okay year and a great sort of the great proving ground, and goes in. And yesterday he was taking reps as the first as the starter in training camp.
With
so
$34 million in his pocketbook too, by the way.
Exactly. And that's the point, is that you're going to play, you're going to get paid. Coming to a place like Florida matters because you have access to all the things that any player is going to have. Whatever opportunity is around, that we're going to give the best to get you that opportunity, and that's going to matter. And that's why you should come at Florida. I think we're going to see more of this, and the emphasis on more of with the media department, which is one of the best in the SEC up at the UAA, and what they do as far as getting your image, getting your likeness out there, getting your stats, all these things. I think that's why we're hearing Billy talk about how much lean body mass you're putting on. It inspires guys to work harder because people are going to hear about it. Who doesn't want to? Look, if you do a lot of working out and you do all these different things, nobody knows. But now Billy's telling people how much lean body mass you put on, how much they want to know that you're a team player, that you work hard, and they also want people to see that you're gonna play. I think that's important.
Body mass check. What do you think it might be? I don't know.
2%.
Yeah.
Maybe one,
Hmm.
1.5.
Yeah, there you go. One.
Oh,
Yeah, you've
yeah.
been working. Yeah,
Let me
definitely.
remind folks you're listening to a pop-up version of the Buddy Martin Show on YouTube, which is where we're going to be living pretty much full-time soon. You'll see Loren there, and you'll see Shane Matthews will be there, and we'll have our whole crew. Ben Troop will be
Brand
there.
Beard,
Franz
Ben
Beard, of
Troop.
course.
You see,
Yeah,
different shows are going to come up.
yeah.
We got some of the young guns. We got Matt Corderaro and Kyle
Allie
and
Peak Wilbur,
Allie
David
Peak will come
Moulton.
on. All the
Yeah.
regular guests on the Buddy Martin
Plus
Show.
special guests, plus a lot of special guests too.
Absolutely.
So
So
just to set it up, so we're on right now Monday through Fridays. Soon to
like
be
and subscribe, comment in the chat. Subscribe,
soon
subscribe, subscribe.
soon to be adding a best Fridays in football, okay, with Urban Meyer. How about that lineup, folks? So check us out. We're on 4 nights a week right now.
Which is really good, by the way. Even if you don't like Urban Meyer, if you're an Urban Meyer hater as a Gator fan, listen to just a couple of the segments. And man, especially with the Swamp Kings thing coming up, like
Netflix, yeah.
it is fascinating. If you're a football fan and you care about X's and O's and you care about all the things we're talking about right now, Urban talks about all this stuff in these interviews, and it's really interesting to hear about how a Hall of Fame coach. With all the natties that he has and the way that he puts together a team, how they care about recruiting, what it means, and all that stuff. I think if you even if you're a coach or aspiring coach, these are things you should listen to because
He
it
gets
is
paid a lot of
gold.
money by Fox, Brendan, to do this on.
But you don't hear him talk. You don't
But
hear
wait
him
a
talk
minute.
like this. But you
No,
don't hear him talk in long
no, wait
segments
a
like
minute.
this.
I'm going to make a point here. They're paying him a lot of money at Fox. We better give him a raise.
I'm going to give him some Duncan.
Give him a raise. Wait a minute. I forgot we don't pay him. Okay, well, I guess we can't do that. All right, so guys, let's get to the question part. Loren, I don't know if you went. I don't think you were at the press conference. I know I wasn't there. But by the way, we had 4 people in Gainesville and 2 here at 6. I mean, we covered the opening day of Gator football.
And you can read about that. And you're going to be able to read all those articles. That's the other thing. GatorbaitMedia.com. Subscribe now. Get in. All these articles for Loren, Buddy, Franz, Kyle, Matt, all these people just met. They're all going to be reporting, writing their articles, insights. All that stuff is in there. Subscribe today. Go to GatorbaitMedia.com and get yourself in before football season starts.
Yeah, and Loren, we interrupted you. You get it's tough being these Martin boys here. I mean, being in the middle.
that's
I'm
all
sorry.
right.
I apologize.
He's squeezed between. He's like right in the middle.
He's bulked up, though. He can handle it. So, all right. So here's the
Working
deal.
out.
The questions are coming up now, and this is one. If you listen closely to this answer, it deals with the expectations. And Loren, you were a coach. You know, there's a certain honesty you have to have with each other about how good can we be, and you define what you think is success. You don't tell the outside world about it. You just tell them you have a bind, and you say, "Okay, guys, we think we can do this. Now let's see who can own up to what they're supposed to do." And this is what Mark Long's question is about. Listen closely to Billy's answer. Then we got our colleague Franz Beer right after that. So stand by. And thanks, by the way, folks, for jumping in here at the last second. We just decided to do this show, I don't know, 10 minutes ago or something.
Hey, buddy, before you go to your bite, if you mute your mic, we hear Billy a little bit better because it turns Billy's audio up a little bit.
You mentioned expectations internally. Is that more important when the expectations externally maybe are not where they have been in the past for the program?
Yeah, I think your question is relevant. And I think it's really a part of where we're at as an organization, as a program, right? I think the way I would describe it is if we can agree as a team, all parts of the organization, and especially amongst the players, that, hey, look, this is the expectation we're going to establish for each other. And that should be much higher than any outside narrative or any outside opinion, right? If I'm walking around the building each day, if I'm living life and I'm most concerned with not letting the people down, that are going to be in this team meeting in a couple hours. That's the most important piece, right? And I think when you have that and you're seeing things through that lens from a football standpoint, but also from a character standpoint, and really, you know, am I doing what I would expect of other people? And I think you got a chance, right? There's no doubt in this arena that you have to have that perspective as an organization, as a team.
You know, personnel, where we are as a team, what we felt our culture was, and no matter what, you know, and the one thing we did do a great job of, I think when I was coaching, I think a lot of good coaching staffs do this, is we always sure that no matter what it was, um, we were on the same page publicly. We may disagree in private, or we may think certain things aren't going the way that they are, but publicly and to our football team, we were always on the same page. And you know, I think that that's what Coach Napier is speaking of when he talks about just kind of maintaining and setting, but then really working whatever the expectation is, making a commitment to work to that expectation.
To
And
each other.
I think, huh?
To each
And
other.
I think that's where to each other. Yeah, and I think that team. I think that's where this team is right now. I asked Montrell Johnson. I said, you know, I keep hearing from different individuals, the Jason Marshalls, Kingsley, and then Montrell Johnson said, you know, shock the world. You know, and I asked him. I said, is that something that's kind of going around the locker room? And he said, absolutely. He said because you know we do kind of see where things are, and the expectations have been lowered for this football team, and you know, he said that's kind of there. So in a lot of ways, that's kind of become the rallying call of this team is shocking the world.
Yeah,
You know,
circle the wagons. Let's pick back up and see if we can get the rest of this. Is Francis' question. Yeah, I don't think we can get it now. I've lost it. But anyway, Francis, well, I'll get his question on. Hold on a second. We'll get Fran, we'll wrap up with that. But Brand's asking about the number of losses, but they were close last year. You know, how many times did they lose games they shouldn't have lost?
You mentioned expectations internally.
We're going to allocate our energy and effort and time to getting our football team ready, you know, technically, but also the team dynamic. You know, building the team is building the football part, but more importantly, I think it's building that human element. You're sitting in that locker room for those games. You're looking around the room. There's absolute trust with every person in that room, and that's what we're in the process of building.
Billy Fransbeard, Gator, but last year there were so many close calls, a play here, a play there, and all of a sudden you're a 9 or 10 win team instead of a 6 and 17. How do you change that mentality to we got to make that play, we can make that play, we have to make that play in an off season?
Well, I think the cool thing about where we're at is lots of parts of our building, players and staff had to go through that, right? And I think when you have adversity, I think it presents opportunity, right? And I think the key here is that we grow through struggle, right? Anything that's been built, that's accomplished anything significant, went through some adversity, right? And I think it's all about how you respond to that. But there's technical aspects to playing winning football that in those games that we lost, we just didn't do what we were supposed to do, right? And then there's an emotional component relative to how you're going to respond, right? Are you resilient? Are you mentally tough enough to continue to be consistent? And ultimately, take a good look in the mirror. What is your role and how can you do it better to help the team, right? So we've got a core group of people that went through that with us last year that are back.
I think that was a critical comment right there. Whether you want to put it in faith or you want to put it in life, you want to put it in football. And that is the adversity is opportunity. And he made it a point to say, we have people who went through that as if it were a crucible, right? And they're stronger for it. So that it's almost like the days of Bear Bryant Junction when he took those free busloads of players out there to Junction and brought back 14 or 15. And those are the ones who went through Junction who came a core for their national championship team. So this to me, and Loren, you've coached, and Brendan, you played a little bit. When you go through that adversity, you talked about circling the wagons, like you said, shock the world. That's when you build that bond. And I think that ultimately that 7-9 season will make them a stronger team. It may take a minute with these young freshmen, and they're talented. And if Mertz, who I think is a better quarterback than people are giving him credit for, if he can play like I think he can, he's smart. You heard what Ricky Pearsall said. He's smart. He's efficient. He works. He's working 2 days. And if he can pull this off, and these young players can kick in the second half, their first 6 games are not terrible. Utah may be a little tougher, but you never know. In Tennessee, if they get to that halfway point, the back half is going to be the toughest part. The team should be getting ready about Georgia. Loren, am I wrong about that?
No, I think you're right. I mean, you can look at it like you said, and the thing I think what he did by not saying it is what we've all kind of been saying all along is the fact that ultimately he was speaking to that ultimately the results are on the field. He said there were times we just didn't do our job. And how do you learn from it? How do you adjust from it and things like that? And like you said, there are people that have gone through that will look at, when they play Kentucky this time, man, I didn't do this when we played the last time. I want to do better this game. Or I had a really bad game against Florida State. I'm going to play better this time. I could have got, Princely's going to be saying, man, I remember when Jordan Travis I almost had him, all those things. And, as a player, and Brendan, you can relate to this, we both caught passes and things like that. You're like, man, the last time I ran that out route, I can't, or I dropped the ball, or I did, and it's like the next time you want to do better on the net,
I think I can do better.
Yeah, I can do better. And I think that's what he's speaking to. And if it becomes not just, it becomes an audible thing where it builds relationships because you tell your buddy, man, I remember that happened last game. And they say, yeah, man, I could have done this too. Or even I could have helped you out in that situation. Like if you're talking like a Kamari Wilson and a Jason Marshall, man, I could have helped you out on that play against Tennessee. I remember that. And now it just builds a more cohesive bond. And I think that's what Billy was speaking to Coach Napier was speaking to in that whole setup there.
Yeah. Brendan,
Well, I think
it's almost like I've been with you since the airport, right?
Yeah, but
right?
I think yes, I think there is. I think, I'm old enough to remember being in a rough, sophomore year playing on varsity, being in a training camp 2 days for 2 weeks where we lived at the school and we went through running wind sprints at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and try to, harden you up and, get you to, to have that sort of team camaraderie. I think there is something to that, but, listening to Billy later in the press conference, he alluded to, COVID taught us a lot, he said. Gone are the days of having to beat you down 2 days, in the heat, all of that stuff. What we learned, he said, what we learned in COVID is that, you can do a little less, full pads 2 or 3 times a day, beat you down, go, go, go. But they're doing these things where they'll have a practice and then they'll have a walkthrough of that practice, the next practice. And that'll be spiders or shells or full pads, right? And that they're doing less of this bang, bang, to some degree because they've learned in COVID that, that didn't always translate, right? What translated was, what was learning the offense, understanding the why that we do things. So as much as I think that there is a camaraderie in the fact of you might go through something together, I at the same time, I don't think they want to talk about last season that much. I think they want to talk about the future because, as Buddy just said to you, Loren, what are we expecting, from this team this year, right? We have to have an honest conversation about that, right? Well, I think they've had that honest conversation. They're going to do everything that you can do to get through this year, but they know that they're not as good as they can be as they're probably going to be, right? So now you've got to figure out ways to get people to play better than they are, right? Be above your talent level, right? And to go all out and to lay it all out there. And that's what great coaching does. That's the Steve Spurriers, the Urban Meyers, and all those things. And that's a big question mark for Billy right now. I think he also alluded in the press conference to, hey, he kind of understands the stage a little bit better. He understands what it's like to play at this or coach at this level. And he said, quote, it is what it is sometimes, right? And he's in learning to live with certain, traditions or whatever these things are. I think all of that kind of, equates, like how are we going to make this year effective, win enough games to not lose any players or get guys to transfer or have the whole thing out. Because as much as we say next year, Billy did say you still have to win. You have to win to make a difference. You have to win because people will change their minds quickly. And, Florida fans are impatient. And you go out and win 5-6 games, you're going to have a lot of people calling for your head. You're going to have Feinbaum telling you, saying, nasty things about you again. No matter what, I think Billy understands that. So now comes, if they can go win 8-9 games this year, that's going to be one hell of a mark or a feather in Billy's cap, is that he coached above, the talent level that he really had. Because I don't care what anyone says, it's a tough schedule when you look at these teams, because you're going on the road. You're playing opening day, Thursday night, 8 o'clock on ESPN in Utah at altitude.
These two Utes.
Yeah, and it's good. And look, being from Colorado, I've said it 1,000 times. Altitude makes a difference. Playing in the middle of the week makes a difference. That's a tough ass win right now. You turn around, you've got a lot of teams on the road, and you got some nasty teams coming into the swamp, and you don't want to get embarrassed, right? People don't want to remember the bowl game where you had to kick a field goal to not be blanked out by a no-name, non-SEC team, right? So there's a lot, on the coaching perspective that Billy has to prove and he has to also prove that he's, justify this gigantic coaching staff that he has. And he talked about that, about getting systems in place, getting things smoothed out, and making things run more cohesive so that these players can play above the talent level that they're at. And I think all of that, what we're talking about right now, is what he's trying to do. And that really comes to inspiring these guys. And that's my question mark with Billy. Can you inspire like Spurrier? Can you inspire like Meyer? Because it really comes down to firing up and putting it in their belly and going out there, especially that style of offense he wants to play. You could talk about receivers. We still got to know about Graham Mertz. We still got to know about getting these guys confident and believing in each other and believing in their coaching staff and laying it all out there.
Well said. You're right. And that's all true. Let me do a little business here. Then I want you guys to come back with your final thoughts, okay? What stuck out to you today? Give me your best 30 seconds, a number, a thing, whatever. But let me tell folks who we are and what we're doing. This is the Buddy Martin Show on YouTube. You'll be hearing us here regularly in the near future. And usually during the week, we are on Monday through Friday, and we've been on at 9 o'clock Eastern time, and we probably will change some of that. But I've got a great lineup of guests. I mean, they're the best. So check us out on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and now soon Friday with Urban Meyer. I want to say also, subscribe to Gator Bay. Loren writes. By the way, I'm Buddy Martin. The guy in the middle is Loren Meadows, and the guy on the other end is Brendan Martin. We publish a publication with some terrific writers, France Beard among them, you heard him earlier, and our two young writers, Matt Cordero and Kyle Curtis, along with other people that do it, and we appreciate it. But I want to thank these people who make this show possible during the week. Number one, Titan MRI. Titan MRI, worth a short drive to Gainesville, no insurance, no problem. Pay with cash or card. Check them out. They drive from Marion County, the villages up there, because you don't even need to make an appointment. You can just call them up and say, I'm coming. You pay with cash or card. TitanMRI.com. Also, thanks to Meldon Law. They don't back down. And also our friends at Rinstar Medical Research. Okay, who wants to go first? It's your takeaway. 30 seconds, a number, a name, a quote. Who's got something?
I think I'll go ahead and go first. What was most interesting to me is I think, I'm a big Rob Sale fan, and I thought Rob Sale, of all the coaches, stepped to the podium with a level of confidence, and he's my kind of guy. He's a between the lines kind of guy. He's a guy that, someone asked about Keontae Goodwin transferring. Unfortunately, his mother has become ill, but he was very quick to point out that we got guys that can go in there and play winning football on our offensive line. And, he was confident with the group of people that I think he has. Austin Barber, kind of talked to his transition, out to left tackle full time, and just what ability he brings. And so, the SEC, for as flashy as it can be, is a trenches league. And, that's one of the things that I think, at least initially, if I had to pinpoint, I would say of all the units, that offensive line with Coach Sale and Coach Stapleton is going to be in good shape. I love his, he used the term pull the pin. When a guy pulls the pin, he's ready to go. And I really like that. I thought that was cool. So, offensive line is in good shape.
Good comment. Brendan, you want to go or you want me to go?
Go ahead, Dad.
Okay, I just want to say that you mentioned the left tackle, Austin Barber. I had him on the show last week. And I asked him, I said, who has really impressed you as a dog? And he said Slaughter, the kid from Ocala, playing center, who's bulks up. They said he's really impressed people a lot. So let's keep an eye on him. But walking away with the numbers and stuff, I can't get out of my mind 53 max velocity. I think that's a way of saying they're faster. I don't know, or running as fast as they can. Am I right, Lauren?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. 53 people, record max velocity, personal. So they're definitely a faster football team for sure. On paper.
21 days of practice, and we're off and running on day one. Brendan, what about day one so far?
Well, I think day one is day one. I think we're speculating much of like we always have, but I think it's important just to go on what we've heard from Billy. I don't want to be a broken record, but I think, what we're hearing now is much of what is expected. I like hearing about, how much pounds guys have put on and the differences, because that speaks to what the emphasis has been in the off season, and what we're going to see more of going forward. And to me, Rob Sale is a great addition, and like Loren, it's all about size and the offensive line, especially if they're going with the smash mouth style of football. Run the ball a lot more. So I guess I'm excited, as a Gator fan, to know that the emphasis is on training, is on getting bigger and better. But I do feel like, just hearing Billy talk, that he seems more seasoned, that he's a lot more prepared for this season. And I think we should expect a pretty decent season, and the next 3 weeks of training camp. Like Billy said, he says you should be excited to compete. You should be excited to show up right now. This is the time to show how much work you've done in the off season, and this is the time that you're going to go fight for your position to start, to make a difference. And I think, as Joe, football fan, this is an exciting time to see how this starting roster is going to go out. And look, guys, we're 3 weeks from football right now, from Gator football. And I know that's exciting to all of us. So my take is that I'm just glad today is here. And I think we'll be able to cover these things the next 3 weeks on GatorbaitMedia.com, here on the Buddy Martin Show on YouTube. And I'm excited for our new team, because we've added new players and what we're doing, a lot of boots on the ground. So I'm excited to, being the quarterback of this team that we're on, to really go and see what we can do to cover this team and to bring out this information and to have bigger discussion to see what kind of football team Billy's going to put on the field, come in 3 weeks. So,
and we'll be there covering it for you every day, our crew. And we've got nice photos by Chris Spears coming up on Gator Bait. And I'm hearing a couple of you guys might be able to go into Utah for the game. I'm sure there will be 3 or 4 of us. So lots of stuff happening at Gator Bait. All right, I was going to do this. I was going to go back and play the Billy Bite again with all the stuff about the lean muscle for Brendan, but no. I think I'll play the close and say goodnight. And
what do you mean? Are you going to play it? Play it for those new people that are on that didn't see it. We had about 20 people join us.
If I said that, he immediately want to take over the producing of the show. Okay.
Well, yeah, because you're trying to go get your Sam.
Well, I'm really proud of the progress that our team made this summer in Phase 5. The development staff, I thought in particular, really improved in year 2. All the metrics that we have from a testing perspective, I think we took a step forward. Strength, speed, explosiveness, all the DEXA information was really good. And certainly that group works together, right? They execute as a team, the strength and conditioning, sports science, the nutrition, the training room. Really good leadership and insight from Mark Hockey and his staff. And then certainly the addition of Tyler Miles and Kelsey continues to get better. Tony Hill and Paul Silvestri. That group of people has to work extensively together, oftentimes when the coaches are out of town for vacation. So their leadership, their relationships with the players, and their plan, right? I think we took a huge step forward there. So, some really interesting numbers here, for you guys. I think you get a kick out of some of this. But, we had 53 players that set records for max velocity this summer, which I think was really positive. TJ Searcy gained 12 pounds of muscle since January. Jalen Kimbers gained 8 pounds since April of muscle. Jack Pyburn, 10 pounds of muscle mass since January. His body fat percentage went down 6%. So really, Jack did a terrific job. Jason Marshall, 7 pounds of lean muscle. A couple guys, Princely had a fantastic summer. He maxed in all 3 lifts, all 3 core lifts, bench, squat, clean. He improved his max velocity, gained 10 pounds of lean muscle, and he lost 7 pounds of fat mass, right? So a really good summer there. I do think Tony Livingston, this guy's gained 28 pounds of muscle since January. So that's 2 DEXAs worth of information. Bryce Lovett gained 10 pounds of muscle and lost 10 pounds of fat. So there's others. Andy Jean, 9 pounds of lean mass. Graham Mertz gained 4 pounds of lean muscle. Ricky Pearsall, 4 pounds of lean muscle, actually decreased his body fat slightly. So we've got a lot of guys that are using the resources.
All right, there you go. There's your stats for the day. You happy, Brendan?
I am. Joe Blackburn, stop calling me during the show. I'll call you in a second. Good God, son.
All right, guys. We're out of here. Good job, Lauren. We'll have more tomorrow right here.
Yeah.
Take care, Lauren. Good job, Brendan. See you guys.
Later.